race to the White House that now is turning out to be no less than an edge-of-the-seat thriller, as the ferocity of the contest that seems to be multiplying every single hour as the D-Day approaches. Both of the candidates, with the former President Donald Trump and current Vice President Kamala Harris, like clashing gladiators in a coliseum, are leaving no stone unturned to win the votes. Now, this battle is most intense in the 7 swing states that are set to hold the key to the White House. It is this very moment in the presidential elections that in which everyone seems to be picking a side. There is the mighty Elon Musk, who is openly endorsing Donald Trump. On the other hand, there are global celebrities like Taylor Swift, Jennifer Lopez, Beyonce, George Clooney, Harrison Ford and others who are endorsing Kamala Harris. Now, can the celebrity influencers swing the US presidential elections, and how tight is the competition this time to win the race to the White House? We have Malvika joining us right now. Malvika, good evening to you. We meet again as we talk about, how tight this race will be. What are the two leaders on the last day of the election campaign doing?
Well, I think one is, of course, that they're participating in rallies in key swing states. There are 7 swing states: Arizona, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Wisconsin. And these are the key areas which are the battlegrounds, and you're seeing canvassing events, large rallies being conducted by both Harris and Trump. But what we are also seeing very uniquely in this election, of course, in all elections, door-to-door campaigning is done. But this time around, till the last day, till the last minute, both the campaigns, especially the Democratic campaign volunteers, are knocking on each and every door and trying to get the voters to the polling booths, because none of the two sides want to take a chance, and they want to make sure that everybody who supports them is out there and voting.
All right. We as talk about as Malvika is also getting us the updates of how Donald Trump will be holding his rally in North Carolina, moving towards Pennsylvania, and thereafter when it comes to West Philadelphia as well, in Pittsburgh, in Michigan. But we talk about as far as the importance that is now being given, especially when it comes to the Indian diaspora. Do they hold the key and the kind of influence that they have in the elections in the run-up there? As we are looking at when it comes to the Indian diaspora, the community there and their strength, let's in the meantime listen to the reactions that are now coming in.
Nobody knows where the other guy is. Where the hell is he? Where the hell did he go, David? Where is he? Nobody knows where the hell. Where is Biden? Remember? We used to go, where's Hunter? We used to go, where's Hunter? Now we go, where the hell is Biden? Where's Joe? When you think they stole the election. It was just, they walked in, they said, you're out. Right? That's a threat to democracy. They call me a threat to democracy. They stole the election from this guy, whether you like him or not. They stole the election. They walked in, they said, get out of here, Joe. You're out. You're dead. You're out, Joe. And man, oh man, he likes me better than he likes her, I really believe. And you have to tell Kamala that you've had enough, Kamala. You've had enough. You're the worst ever. Kamala, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. Get out of here.
So right there from the open and personal digs that have also been taken place, let's talk about the Indian diaspora as well. Why does it matter, as the race to the White House is now only intensifying? With 5.2 million Indian Americans residing in the United States of America, there are at least nearly 2.6 million of them which are said to be Indian Americans who are eligible to vote. Let's put that out as far as the figures that are concerned. Nearly 2.6 million Indian Americans who are eligible to vote. Now, the second largest as far as the immigrant community that is also concerned is the Indian community, right after the Mexican community. And of course, when it comes to this median, that household, that also the income double of the entire United States as far as economically, also the kind of impact and influence that it has, with more than 700,000 Asian Indians are the ones who reside in those 7 swing states. So as far as these swing states are concerned, they are the ones that hold the key, especially when it comes to bringing about a sudden change in the election results that may happen. So Malvika, once again, let's come to you on that swing states are concerned. What are these swing states? And we're looking at last minute campaign that seems to be happening in these swing states by both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
All right, in these swing states, like you mentioned, there is a large Indian population. There's a large immigrant population that lives. So what makes these swing states unique is that, in the US, there are 50 states, and some states are blue. That means that predominantly the Democratic Party comes into power from those states. They are always winning in those states. The red states are where the Republicans win. But there are these 7 swing states, which has a large independent population, and they're always sitting on the fence, and it's always a surprise. And that's why the campaigns of both Harris and Donald Trump are focusing on these 7 swing states. And there are 3 key issues across the spectrum. One is related to immigration. These states have a large immigrant population. Indian Americans are also a large chunk of the population, particularly in the states of Michigan, in the state of Georgia, in Pennsylvania and Nevada. And then the other issue is related to the economy. There is very high inflation in the US, just like in several other parts of the world. And that has taken a hit, that has hit the working population, the working class population, which has a large presence in these swing states. And the third issue is related to abortion rights. Remember that a Supreme Court justice who had been appointed by Donald Trump had overturned the Roe versus Wade judgment. And now in several states in the US, women do not have the right to abort their fetuses. And this is also a religious issue in the US. So many women you are seeing are voting for Harris. There is a gender gap also in the voting patterns in these swing states and across the US. More men are voting for Trump and more women are voting for Harris. So it remains to be seen.
Well, would there be a first woman, president that America will see, or would it be a comeback for Donald Trump? Because while Kamala Harris in a way has been suggesting that if Donald Trump and his supporters regain control of the White House, they are likely to cut back on healthcare programs as well, as what Malvika was pointing out. Suhas Subramaniam has been also one of them to comment on the election campaign that has been taking place. Malvika had a conversation with him. Let's listen in.
Hello and welcome to Times Now. I'm Malvika Jain and I have with me Suhas Subramaniam, who's running for Congress from the Democratic Party right here in the state of Virginia. Suhas, welcome to Times Now.
Thank you.
My first question to you is that, at the campaign event today, we have seen some Republicans also participating. What is it that is motivating Republicans to support a Democratic candidate like yourself?
Yeah, I've always told people that I want to be a voice for all Virginians, Democrats and Republicans. And so I also want to make sure that we unite people and bridge the divides in our politics, because our politics has been more divided than ever before. And so part of that means welcoming Republicans who want to support me and doing rallies like this with them. And so it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican, we're a campaign where people can get behind it.
Well, some Republicans are also supporting Kamala Harris. Why is that? Why aren't they supporting Trump? Because the race seems to be pretty tight, and that means that he does have substantial support.
Yeah, people are concerned about a couple of things. One, our democracy generally, because Trump has said many anti-democratic things. And January 6th, things like that were very difficult for our community and for our country. And so we want to make sure that we protect that. Locally, actually, federal workers here are actually under attack. He would fire federal civil servants if elected. And so that's really bad for our economy here. And so you see a lot of Republicans that work in the federal government who are supporting our campaign.
Sure. You have Indian origins. And what do you think the outcome of the presidential elections could mean for India and Indian immigrants who are living in the U.S.?
Yeah, for India, I just want to make sure we have a strong U.S.-India relationship, regardless of who's president. I think Trump has vowed to do that. I think Harris has vowed to do that. I also want to make sure that we have an immigration system that works for people who are coming over on, say, H-1B visas. We're trying to get green cards, waiting 10, 15 years. My parents immigrated here in the late 70s. They got their green card in 3 months. And so we need to do more for people when it comes to legal immigration. We can do border security. We can try to address undocumented immigrants as well. But let's do more on legal immigration and for the Indian diaspora.
And do you think Kamala Harris would also be favorable towards India? Because there are certain remarks she has made, for instance, on the issue of Kashmir, which is not in line with the Indian government's stance.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I know that regardless of who's president in India, the U.S.-India relationship is so critical to the world, really. It's two of the most important democracies out there, and we need to make sure that we strengthen that relationship. And it doesn't have to be at the expense of any other region, but we certainly already have a very strong economic relationship. I think there's more we can do on the defense side. I think long-term, this is going to be a really fruitful relationship if we just continue the momentum.
Sure. And my last question to you is that it's a very, 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 very close race. Who do you think is going to win?
I have no idea. Like I was saying to someone earlier, I'm really bad at predicting who wins these elections. I do know that if we get out the vote and we fight, we'll win my race for certain. I do know that if we make sure that every person comes out and votes, that Kamala Harris would likely win as well.
All right, Malvika, interesting conversations there. Of course, we'll be playing out the rest as well that you've got for our viewers to see. But do you believe that the voters, who have already cast their ballot, indicating when it comes to the numbers who are actually willing to change their mind, is that the situation that is also now being witnessed, some last-minute changes or second thoughts?
Well, it remains to be seen, like Suhas Subramaniam was also mentioning, it's a very tight race. 72 million voters have cast their ballot early, but there are several other people who have to cast their vote. There are millions of people who have not yet casted their vote. So we cannot say with certainty which way the election results would swing. But I also wanted to mention, as far as the India-US relationship is concerned, it seems that all the people that we have talked to, they are pretty confident that either whether it's Donald Trump who comes to power or it's Kamala Harris who comes to power, India and US relationships will continue and grow from strength to strength, because India is a very important partner for the US. Whether it's we are looking at it from an economic perspective, it's a very, very important trade partner, or you're looking at it from a geopolitical perspective. If the US wants to counter China's growing rise, it really needs India by its side. So I think India and US relationship is really is on the right trajectory.
Well, as Donald Trump says, my good friend Narendra Modi. Of course, we're looking at certain prayers and havans that are also happening in his name here. But as the swing states suggest, it could happen anything may happen. Of course, when it comes to Kamala Harris herself, having her roots that could be traced back to India. Thank you very much, Malvika. It's post 11 p.m. there in Washington, D.C. as she's joining us live. Another influential person that we talk about that Malvika spoke to was Raja Krishnamoorthi, who is the Delhi-born U.S. congressman elected to the Congress in 2016 and is now the fourth term representing Illinois 8th District. He serves as the ranking member of the Select Committee on the Strategic Competition between United States and the Chinese Communist Party, making him the first South Asian American in history to lead the Congressional Committee. Let's listen in.
Hello and welcome to Times Now. I have with me Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi. He represents the state of Illinois and he belongs to the Democratic Party, the party which has fielded Kamala Harris as its presidential candidate in the upcoming elections, which are scheduled to take place on the 5th of November. Early voting has already started in some of the states. Congressman, given the early voting trend that we are seeing in some states, who do you think is going to win? Is Harris likely to be the next president of the U.S.?
I think so. I think that the number of women who are early voting is also a sign of enthusiasm among women. And Harris has a big edge over Donald Trump with regard to women. All that being said, I still think that this election is going to be very close. And I expect that, Tuesday night will be kind of a lengthy vote tallying evening.
Sure. And I wanted to ask you about Harris and the way she sees her Indian identity. She has steered clear of any debate on race and identity, so to speak. Yesterday, Donald Trump actually in his Diwali wish mentioned about the atrocities against Hindus in Bangladesh. He has talked about how he has a strong bond with Prime Minister Modi. But we don't see any such comments coming from Kamala Harris, or even a very vocal acknowledgement of the fact that she's from India, besides some time-to-time references to her mother's journey from India.
Well, I happen to know Kamala Harris somewhat well, and I know that she's very proud of her Indian roots. She talks to me about it. She talks to others about it. Her mother brought her up, and so being an Indian woman, her mother inculcated various values, as well as instilled in Kamala and her sister Maya a deep respect for their heritage. All that being said, Kamala Harris is trying to be president of all the United States, not just one portion or one ethnicity. And so I think it's very important for her to speak to kind of issues that resonate with everybody. All that being said, I think her mother's immigrant story is an important part of her own. And I know that she's very, very comfortable and proud to be a Desi.
So why is she not talking about the Desi issues, so to speak?
She is. I've heard her speak about these issues. At the same time, I've heard her speak about a lot of different issues. And what you learn in politics is that victory is about addition and multiplication. And so you have to bring a lot of groups together. You have to talk about the issues that are most common to everybody. And right now, as you know, in America, the most important issues are the ones that are kitchen table topic issues, such as lowering the cost of living, making sure health care and education are within reach of everybody, and making sure everyone has a job that enables them to get into the middle class.
But what about immigration as an issue? It is something that's very important for Indian immigrants who are in the US. And we are seeing that there is an uptick in the way, and maybe she's taking a cue from Donald Trump, but Harris has also started somewhat saying that there will be restrictions of some nature put on immigration. Is that only limited to illegal immigrants? And where does India picture, the immigrants from India picture in all of this?
Well, remember, Indian immigrants are among us, and I happen to be one of them. I was made in India. And so, given my own heritage and lineage, I'm very concerned about this issue. I know that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and Democrats have been leading in terms of trying to reform our immigration system, making sure that we can, bring more immigrants to this country legally, at the same time cracking down on illegal immigration and securing our border. Remember, Democrats working with a Republican senator named James Langford came up with a compromise to secure the border, crack down on illegal immigration, and yet Donald Trump stopped it in its tracks, saying that he wanted to deny a victory to Joe Biden. And what he's doing is he's basically running on a problem instead of trying to find a solution to that problem.
But what would these immigration policies that Kamala Harris has in mind mean for Indian immigrants? There are several of them who are waiting in line with their green cards. Some don't have green cards. And of course, there are multiple opportunities back home in India. But there are some who want to tap into the opportunities in the US as well.
Of course. Well, as you know, I'm the sponsor or the author of pretty much every single immigration legislation in Congress right now, including the ones having to do with high-skilled immigration, which affect Indian immigrants, such as the EAGLE Act, which would remove the per-country quota, which otherwise denies Indian immigrants a chance to get a green card in a timely fashion. I'm also the author of the legislation which increases the number of H-1B visas, which unfortunately has not changed in, I think, 30 years. I'm the author of the Emergency Green Card Backlogs Act with Larry Bouchon, a Republican. We've come together and said, look, for all of those unused green cards that otherwise would be discarded because countries like Iceland and others will not fully utilize their quota, let's not discard them. Let's use them for those countries that are oversubscribed, like India. So what I'm hoping is that we can move this legislation forward. Right now, Jim Jordan and the Republicans on the Judiciary Committee.
Kamala Harris supports all of these legislations. If she were to become a president, she would push for reforms in the area of immigration that would benefit Indians. Is that what you're trying to say?
That is, but I'm also trying to say there's a choice here. Republicans are standing in the way of each of these pieces of legislation right now. They don't want any of this legislation to move forward, and that's wrong.
Sure. And I also wanted to ask you that, Joe Biden recently called Donald Trump garbage, and Donald Trump was actually able to use that to his advantage, and then you saw him actually riding on a garbage truck. What do you make of this kind of approach that Donald Trump is adopting, and what is lacking in the Harris campaign, and why is Harris not projecting herself more as a torchbearer for the common man?
Well, first of all, remember, this all started in Madison Square Garden, where one of Donald Trump's, I guess, warm-up acts. A comedian of some kind said that Puerto Rico is a floating island of garbage. And unfortunately, Donald Trump did not apologize for that. And in some ways, his campaign seemed to embrace that, which was very offensive. Joe Biden got on a Zoom call, stumbled. And if you look at the transcript, it's clear to me that he wasn't referring to people as garbage, but as their rhetoric as being refuse. And so in any case, I think that is not what ordinary, everyday people are concerned about. They're concerned about how do you lower the cost of living? How do you make education and healthcare more accessible? How do you get me and my children the jobs that enable them to survive in this economy?
My last question to you is that it's a neck-to-neck race, and you acknowledge that until the D-Day, we do not know who is going to win. But why do you think that Kamala Harris has a fairer chance of winning than Donald Trump? And I'm asking you this because you're from the Democratic Party.
Well, I think that, my take is that Kamala Harris is the best candidate. She has the best character. She cares about making sure that middle-class families have a ladder of opportunity to stay in the middle class, but also to enrich their fortunes. I think Kamala Harris will avoid the chaos and the instability that Donald Trump seems to bring with him wherever he goes. I think that also the last point is, remember, Donald Trump is very proud of having named the Supreme Court justices who stripped millions of women of their fundamental rights with regard to reproductive freedom. I cannot overstate this. When I knock on doors, when I talk to my constituents, I talk to so many Republican women who basically say, don't tell anybody, but I'm not going to support Donald Trump. I want a president who will look out for all the people of the United States, including our daughters, our wives, our mothers, our sisters, and so forth.
I have one follow-up question. What is it about the Trump campaign that makes you insecure?
Well, I think that Donald Trump has been riding a wave of grievance, meaning the reason for your problem is because of that brown guy over there from India, or that brown guy over there from Mexico, or because of that person over there. And unfortunately, that taps into a certain primal type of emotion, which is very, very unproductive and dangerous. But it's something that he has learned to tap. There's an old Native American saying, inside each of us is a good wolf and a bad wolf. And the wolf you become is the wolf you feed. We Democrats and Kamala Harris need to feed the good wolves in people. We need to aspire to their ideals, to their dreams, to what they want to become in America. And I respectfully submit that Kamala Harris is more about average, everyday people achieving their dreams, their American dreams, and Donald Trump is more about litigating his grievances. And that is a very stark contrast.